Hi friends, this is Sahar Shunier, human interest photojournalist and founding spokesperson of Stop Non-Consensual Experiments on All World Citizens. Today is actually March 23rd, 2021. When I started this video and finished most of it, it was January 30th, 2021. And so this is the final draft of that update. I was one of only a few merit scholars chosen to meet the president of Russia, Boris Yeltsin, in 1992 at a small dinner hosted by NYU. He was accompanied by military intelligence agents, including but not limited to from Russia. To stop the epidemic of sexual assaults on campuses, military bases, etc., the fact internationally highly shielded organized sexual predators and extortioners' favorite tactic to recruit, brainwash, program, and spiritually possess is rape via assigned, military-connected psychological operatives, example at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, whose psychology department very much needs to be investigated, designed to make their targets dissociate from and spiritually leave their body, must be addressed. The kind of things that went on under psychological operations on campus at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, when I was there, are beyond imagination. There was even more than one, quote, dance that simulated rape during the annual performances. It was traumatizing a beautiful dance instructor and dancer who was given one such piece to perform as a solo of somebody simulating someone who was being raped. That was a piece choreographed by the then artist in residence, who also specifically targeted me in covert ways that were not directly physical. The people believed to be my mother and second stepfather had started working together to try to get my mind under control in Guadalajara. They attended together the Universidad Autónoma de Guadalajara. They both ended up being intelligent psychiatrists. And I have since learned, with the thanks of some people that have contributed information over the years, of some connections, and particular thanks to someone who knows who they are about bringing my attention to another person's research that there is some kind of activity that should be further checked into taking place at Universidad Autónoma de Guadalajara Medical School, where doctors also connected with the NXIVM and the Jonestown cults have also been through. My second pseudo-stepfather, despite very rarely attending church, was granted the status of elder, which is higher than a priest, in what was then called the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, RLDS. There have been several documentaries on the FLDS church and ultimately arrests, but unfortunately, sadly, what also needs to be checked is if really there was complicitness with regard to black budget military intelligence operations. Because of the way my stepfather managed to arrange things at the time, for a stretch, it was primarily my youngest stepsister and me that were being the most affected by my mother's and stepfather's manipulations. Because I don't remember anything from before age 6, and I was lied to my entire life by these people who obviously know better. I've since come to learn that they would, of course, especially have to know better. So I don't know if they're who they told me they are in terms of our personal relationship. I'm not convinced that the person I've always believed to be my mother is my mother. This network has had some reason to lie to me until I was old enough and able to figure out on my own that it's normal to not remember things from before age 6, because I only have 2 very brief events, less than an hour each, from before that age, and so they don't let me know whether the people who claim to be my parents are in fact that. One of the things that was very traumatic for me in an obvious way, and I'm sure really in a less obvious way probably, but it was also very traumatic for my youngest stepsister, was that my mother and pseudo-stepfather pressured her to daily re-injure my bone plate injury that had resulted from a dance injury. And through the grace of God, I was able to heal anyway, and I was interested in pursuing dance into adulthood, though I was always fortunately well-rounded and practical enough that I basically decided as a major to be a communication studies major, which I was very happy to be because I've always had natural inclinations and interest in communication studies. But it needs to be checked. I'm hoping they still have the original application on file because I don't believe, based on my recollection, but an issue is I know that this network has been using drugs and poisons for the very reason of seeking to tamper with my ability to remember things clearly and what have you. So that's why when so much is at stake for so many people, if I'm not 100% sure, I won't swear 100%. So, but I am over 90% sure that I did not even apply to University of Maryland, Baltimore County, that was all arranged by my mother and second pseudo-stepfather, because I remember being totally in shock that I received admission materials to get started at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Now, I was planning to go to college, but I was looking forward to going to NYU. And as I think about it, I don't remember seeing any response from NYU, yay or nay. So I think probably, these people, because I did not realize the extent of what they were doing to manipulate, made sure that my application probably was never even processed, or maybe even arrived, and it might never even have arrived to NYU. And a lot was done to prevent me from ultimately transferring into there. But fortunately, I was able to do that. Yet this network has continued to interfere with the normal sequence of events, so that even to this day, when I'm going to be turning 50 this year, I have not been allowed to just follow up properly with my career counselor from NYU. Multiple times when we have arranged for an in-person appointment, for example, someone has arranged for the fire alarm to go off. From what I've been learning, probably by manipulating, through computer hacking, manipulating radio frequencies that would set off the alarm. And I asked her, how often does that happen? She says, otherwise not often at all. I mean, they've caused it to where everybody's had to clear out of the building and what have you, and then what do you know, the time is up, And so in any event, I'm going to, in the interest of time, just continue on from here. Thank you. Multiple psychological operations group personnel were in fact working through UMBC's psychology department to engage in abusive practices in order to attempt to mind control. The most serious of these, in fact, constituted a level of crime that properly should be investigated by off-campus police, but off-campus police has never been willing to do so. I was one of several female merit scholars whose parents, as far as at least in at least one of the other cases, I'm not sure about the other ones, were apparently also part of this network. Apparently there was a prescribed arrangement for the highly shielded serial rapist on campus who was a psychology major, and in his senior year, when expelled as a result of findings of the on-campus police and the campus hearings, he was assigned to sexually assault to rape. It's a spectrum, technically, basically to traumatize with sexual violence these people that had been singled out by the shadow government network for coercive, covert recruitment. among other things that do need to be properly investigated for people's safety, not just for justice, is that apparently the reason he was not allowed to be having a driver's license at that time is connected to him having already sexually assaulted to raped. I'm not sure where on the spectrum it falls, but having committed sexual violence against someone who was similarly targeted while at their talented and gifted high school. All right, I'm basically going to close this introduction for now and just make a note that I wanted to talk with you in my natural voice. That's not been slowed down to make room for text slides, which the very immediately following sequence has been. So that was the best I could figure out to do at this time under current constraints. Okay, thank you and God bless you.
Screen capture from November 21st, 2018, live video from first travel to Albany, New York, in search of legitimate government intervention. These highly shielded human traffickers began their still ongoing surge of around-the-clock druggings and poisonings, now over 2 years, attempted murder in progress via cumulative toxicity. While their pocketed police that they use their unlawful surveillance and computer hackers to make sure are the ones to do the meeting and greeting whenever I try to get help, from either being driven to the emergency room to try to get medical intervention or going to the police station to try to get a police report. They absolutely refused to initiate investigation, just like they refused to initiate any investigation into their highly shielded, assigned serial rapist on campus at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, decades ago, when they escalated their level of blatancy in this type of targeting against me and other scholars similarly targeted. They are doing this on military bases, cult compounds, academic campuses, and through households of participants, such as the people believed but not known to be my parents. Whether they really are my parents needs to be investigated. Dr. Lockman has always told me that she's my biological mother, but now I have heard on more than one occasion that she's gone around claiming not to be my mother, but to be my doctor in order to have notes placed where she knows from her unlawful surveillance that I am going to be, so that she can try to get me framed up and falsely imprisoned under color of authority by sending some kind of false psychiatric diagnosis. This urgently needs to be made to stop. All I have wanted to do is pursue a legitimate, peaceful life personally and professionally. I am turning 50 this year. At some point, these people finally need to be made to stop so that I have some chance for some quality of life, instead of just now them being allowed to kill me, having abused me for half a century.
Their commission of child pornography and the court-appointed psychiatrist deeming Dr. Lachman Singh too dangerous toward me before organized predators subsequently facilitated her professional transition, which they facilitate still despite several times now having been found to have committed serious frauds, including against the federal government. But they facilitated her professional transition and so far continuation to being one of their, quote, behavior modification, that is, enslavement specialists, appeared to be the primary reason that she lost custody of me when I was 6 years old to my father/pseudo-father. He even told me for my 12th birthday that he'd only adopted me as a favor to my mother, but then he subsequently tried to take it back. Later, the second pseudo-stepfather, Dr. Charles Michael McIntyre, also an intelligence psychiatrist, took me in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico, to the U.S. consulate's office and attempted to bribe them into giving him paperwork that claimed that he was my biological father. He had not discussed this with me in advance. I was completely shocked. That was actually shortly before my father, well, quote, father, the one who I always had believed was my biological father, told me that he'd only adopted me and then subsequently tried to take it back. So what it probably was, as some insiders have since advised me, was that another sale behind my back. And so that was scripted to help to push me toward the next person, the next man they put in place that was intended to be my next handler.
So, being that no one discussed any of this with me, when the consulate's office officials asked me, "Is he your father?" I said, "No, not that I'm aware of." So they did not give him the paperwork that he sought. But I know these people habitually commit fraudulent activities, so who knows what might be circulating out there. So this is a reason I need legitimate, serious investigation, and probably, sadly, I need some private legal help as well, because there's been too much corruption. It was extremely rare then in the 1970s for a mother to lose custody of her biological daughter. Given everything that has happened since, the question really is begged as to whether the government officials involved ever since, at least back then, already knew that there was really a black budget operation that was meant to abuse me lifelong, and that these people were not really about seeking to be legitimate parents. Unfortunately, Stanley Alfred Elaine also was a known pedophile for this highly shielded human trafficking network, having started, quote, dating my mother, in quotes also, when she was only 12 and he was 21. That age gap is also a pattern among these highly shielded human trafficking parties that use oftentimes cults as a front. I'm sure it is due to studies they have had that the age gap will help to provide the undue influence on the person they are targeting for their lifelong human enslavement and trafficking. It is not only extremely uncomfortable to be struggling to breathe, but extreme pain has been inflicted with vicious repetition, systematic torture, as well as worry about whether I will be able to heal, even substantially, because it's already clear that I won't be able to heal 100% anymore, yet again. A horrifically fractured woman caused by this network co-molested me when I was 6 years old, literally pausing to read instructions as she did so. She has been handed carte blanche to prevent me from ever being able to simply live a peaceful, legitimate life that I have worked for many times over, so that she is free to facilitate and coordinate with the torturing of me to the death, and to involve many impressionable, gullible young adults, as well as to target others. What she and my second pseudo-stepfather, Dr. Charles Michael McIntyre, were doing as the consulting psychiatrist for a 24-hour, around-the-clock live-in behavior modification facility based in Anniston, Alabama called Shine and Stars, needs to be urgently investigated. Since I started sharing concerns about this publicly, much information from their website has been disappeared from the internet, even right before the eyes of myself and a friendly contact who was trying to help by going through the Wayback Machine. And what appears to have happened, as best as I've been able to determine, is that really the facility was divided up into splinter groups under new related names. The spelling of the site was, maybe still is, SHINENSTARS.com. So when they spelled it out, they had like apostrophe N, like an abbreviation for the word and. Shine in Stars Behavior Modification. Part of why I was concerned was that it was for both genders with no minimum age whatsoever to be living in the same facility around the clock, every moment of every day and night. In a new documentary series that Paris Hilton started online, talking about some of her personal experiences and concerns, she referenced a place that sounds like such a facility, and she referenced the horror in having been abducted, is her impression, although her parents were expecting this to happen, having been taken forcibly in terms of against her own will from her home, from her home, and taken to what sounds like a similar facility where they badly abused her. It sounds like they were trying to fragment her in order to create multiple personalities so that they could then program those personalities as they wish, so that they could compartmentalize, create amnesia barriers, so that they could make a totally mind-controlled slave, someone who doesn't even know that that's what they are, a sleeper. Regardless of these people's manipulations to present certain versions in fictionalized accounts, these goings-on are well documented to go back decades and need to be urgently addressed to prevent further atrocities against living people in real life to this very day, and to provide some justice to those who have already been documented to have been made to suffer for these people's abusive whims. In their search and goal to get shadow puppeting power over everyone, and apparently they have succeeded to a much larger extent than I ever would have imagined, that I ever would have written for any fictional story, because it is amazing to me that for well over 13 years now, I've had to dedicate myself to proving time and again, event after event of organized criminal activity by these highly shielded organized predators, only to still have them carrying on in their free-for-all, poisoning me, drugging me, trying to frame me as paranoid when I have no record of being such. And I'm going to be turning 50 this year, and law enforcement still refuses to investigate them and the serial rapist on campus at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, that was already in his 20s and had already done this to someone in his talented and gifted high school, and was older significantly, especially in that time frame, being into your 20s, and you're preying on teenagers than the people that he was doing this to. This really needs to be properly addressed and made to stop. And clearly, the makeup of the people that get to decide whether things need to be investigated and get to carry out those investigations, the whole balance of these people needs to be changed, because something is gravely wrong with the system and consequently exponentially with society when these people are allowed to be making decisions that they get to carry out whatever systematic bigoted violence. And I use that term, I don't like to use the term, but it's clearly, they're often in supremacist groups, KKK, for example, and they have an extreme sense of entitlement and hatred vis-a-vis women and vis-a-vis certain racial groups. Even they know that that's not how things are properly supposed to be. Not legally, not lawfully, not ethically. Until it is acknowledged that this is happening, no one is going to make it stop. This is why I've been dedicating myself to public awareness until these people finally get the pressure they need to help actually do their jobs. And if I need to end up being murdered for that to happen, I'm really fine with that, because I know where I'm going as opposed to where these people are going for the ever after life. Though I'm never suicidal, and I'm never going to give up as long as I'm alive, because what they've laid out for me is not tolerable or acceptable for life to just shrug my shoulders. And I believe the Snow Yoke Stop Non-Consensual Experiments on All World Citizens motto: together we can reclaim a healthful environment for ourselves and our children. Wannabe members of the Brotherhood at St. John's University appear to have set up from when I responded to the event's RSVP through Facebook, ironically for an anti-human trafficking event, to falsely accuse me of, quote, paranoia, to have me framed, abducted under color of authority, and disappeared, December 4th, 2019, the day before my third planned travel to Albany in search of legitimate government intervention. I have witnesses and other evidence that there was no paranoia, it was a setup. Among the documentation of that event that absolutely needs to be investigated for these participants' involvement, see the following link to live video recorded on that campus that evening, and also see the additional links in the video descriptions. Thank you, and God bless you. This is a screen capture from my November 21st, 2018 live video from my first travel to Albany in search of legitimate government intervention.
These highly shielded human traffickers began their still ongoing surge of around-the-clock druggings and poisonings, now over 2 years. Attempted murder in progress by cumulative toxicity, while pocketed police seek to frame me as they refuse to investigate. Thank you for your ongoing supportiveness and watchfulness. They have been disappearing people randomly. It seems randomly. Maybe they're being a little more strategic, but generally it seems that people I know most, they're not disappearing, so they don't want me to be able to track readily who they're disappearing from my Snowy Oak Stop Non-Consensual Experiments on All World Citizens community page. So everything they're doing is showing that they keep standing up to just keep getting away with what they're doing, that they have no intention of stopping until the very death of the people they're targeting like this, including me in this case that I'm taking the opportunity to document as extensively as possible. Thank you, and God bless you.
This is to review when in 2007 the organized predatory network was planning to abduct me at gunpoint with someone from Guyana.
I didn't want to go with me, but we sorry? Jack, I can hear you. Oh, okay, no, one of the people yeah, be back. That one day. Yeah, because of that, how we going to do it. Okay.
2007, the highly organized, internationally networked predators were referencing competing factions, that their faction was intent on winning me and that they did not think the other factions were going to succeed in doing that. One might wonder, since the immediately preceding file was of this faction planning to abduct me at gunpoint, what they mean by, quote, winning. From context, given all that I have learned over these many years, they are referring to successfully gaining neuropsychiatric control over my mind. That would include with the use of drugs and hypnosis, neuro-linguistic programming, radio frequencies, several other things. On the Project MK Ultra page, even on Wikipedia, which these people have managed to water down quite a lot, it has quite an extensive list of methodologies to gain coercive control over people's mental states. They say, but it's not just mental states of your thinking, you being their target if you're their target. And they don't do this for its own sake. They do this for their human enslavement and trafficking purposes. The person the organized predators referred to as their audio engineering consultant in mid-2007 was heard saying, in January 2008, a pair of men pretended to be from FedEx. They were actually wearing jackets that said FedEx, though I received confirmation from genuine FedEx employees that they were not representing FedEx. They were attempting to trick me into opening the door of my residence at the time in the Bronx, New York.
December 25th, 2007, the Bronx, New York, Christmas Day. Surge of ritual activity by supremacist, misogynistic, highly shielded, organized predators.
Fentanyl going through here as well, and there's a car couple that went by that also seemed to be carrying them, and wait real quick at the North Carolina code. North Carolina through Fort Bragg is the primary hotspot for U.S.-based Psychological Operations Group's initial training. Misappropriation of these resources for highly shielded human enslavement and human trafficking is why there is such an epidemic on military bases, academic campuses, cult compounds, and so forth, including private households of participants, of gang rapes and murders, free-for-alls by these highly shielded organized predators.
It is 3:44 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, Saturday, January 30th, 2021. So I have to accept, basically, for the time being, that in my room, in the whole hotel room, and especially in certain places, like closer to the door, into the room, which the bathroom is, and in the bathroom itself, I'm going to be more set back, which is a catch-22, because whenever I'm needing to get ready to go anywhere, whether for a personal reason or for professional reason, or some in-between everyday reason, and I'm looking to be as presentable as possible, even if very quickly, what have you. For me right now, that's not quick because of everything that's going on, but and I don't usually wear makeup or do fancy stuff with my hair. I mean, just you see what's going on. So I'm under constant chemical assault. I have been since my first visit to Albany. It wasn't the first I was getting chemically assaulted, but it's the first that they've been on such a prolonged stretch without a break to allow me to even heal in between. So I think that indicates change in motive. I think they, from that point, sooner than for me to have a good chance to get intervention by state government, I think they must feel more comfortable. They have New York City level government pocketed, that they're looking to murder me. So but they don't want to be caught. So they have multiple people in a network arranging to be in range, right? They just need to get access to the building. So they very likely, unfortunately, they have been known historically, I'm not saying about this place in particular, but to interfere with someone, they tend to go for two departments that I've observed in particular, security and housekeeping. And then barring that, in a hotel especially, it's very easy. But even in an apartment, it's relatively easy, apartment building, because it doesn't even have to be somebody that lives there. There are ways for people that spend their whole time figuring out how to access their target to get into the building, for one reason or the other. And in fact, at the building where I'd paid a year in advance, unfortunately, because they made it so I could not breathe in there, when I was leaving, I'd gotten someone to come and inspect the environment. And the doorman, Russian, sorry, because I don't have anything against Russians just because they're from Russia, but they've been disproportionately involved in this targeting. Not just of me, there's certain types that certain groups seem to be more involved with. These Russian organized criminal groups seem to be particularly involved with the mind control targeting, for human enslavement and human trafficking, but they're especially fascinated, what are the ways, what chemicals, drugs, whatever they can use, get certain effects, neuropsychiatric control. The Chinese as well, and I think that's a connection there that is very relevant to the person believed but not known to be my mother, the neuropsychiatrist in this network with triads connections. And it's not all triads, because something that scared her one time, when I was coming back from Vegas, actually, during one of these big surges, that was 2014. That was the previous multiple of 6 life-threatening surge. They've done it during, and the year out of, the year leading into, during, and the year leading out of every multiple of 6 birthday year. So 2007, I turned 36, for example. So things were very flared up, 2006, 2007, 2008. I just turned 48 in 2018. Wait, let me just make sure I did my math right. 2019. I'm going to turn 50 this year. So that's 21. Yeah. So go back 2 years, 2019 is when I turned 48. So 2018 was the year leading into it. 2019, the year of a multiple 6 birthday year, that's turning 48. Then 2020, the year coming out of, ideally they should have stopped it. See, this is another indicator. I think at this point I need to be a lot more concerned that they've reinitiated a contract on my life, that this is attempted murder. So at least there's certain things I thought might be going on that have gotten ruled out. It's not. So I thought I was maybe getting bitten, for example. That would be kind of freaking me out. And I didn't see the bug, whatever. It's not bites. The dermatologist said it's dermatitis. It is a response to something, it's contact dermatitis. It doesn't have to be like you put your finger, whatever it could be. And it probably is, given what else has been going on. And now to the point where I know it is, because this is from a consult months ago. It's the chemical assaults in the environment. So, and I need to be very careful, sometimes it's tempting to kind of scratch or whatever. I'm very disciplined not to do that. So at least it gives me the best chance to heal in between. And then it's wrecking my skin. It's making it very crepey. My skin's not been anything like that before. And the toxicity causing this problems under the eyes and everything. And it's disfiguring also in like the shaping and everything, my nose, everything. And it's corroding my vocal cords as well. It's making it harder, and of course the breathing to speak. I forget about singing for the time being. And this is very calculated. So literally, I had gotten to where I was excelling at dancing. So they didn't want me to be able to practice, and now I know, unfortunately, the consistent coordinating factor in this is the person believed but not known to be my mother, and I don't think she could be my mother. Certainly psychologically and emotionally, she's not, I think. Biologically, I'm expecting to find out she's not either. And that would explain the lies that I was told, that, it's normal to not have memories before you're age 6. I found out it's not, But I had to find out. You don't just happen to know that it's normal or not normal. I just started realizing that friends would be talking about, I remember when I was 3 and this and that happened or whatever. I was like, you remember back when you were 3? So, because with the exception of 2 very brief events, I don't remember anything from before I was 6. So they kept locking me at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, where a lot of the people were involved. It's a bad place for these psychological operatives. That psychology department needs to be investigated. I'm sorry, it's a fact. So this is really dangerous for people. And but somebody kept locking, I did all the proper things I was supposed to do to be able to check out a studio space. It wasn't even that somebody else wanted to be using it at that time. No one was using it. They just literally lock it instead of having it so that I could go in. They'd have it so that you couldn't get in. I was just locked out, right? So they didn't want me to be able to practice. That wasn't good enough. There was concerted efforts made to physically injure me, including the most serious to the spine and severe spine injuries now that have been caused and re-exacerbated. Because when they saw me getting better, they were watching like the hawks, and especially that person believed but not known to be my mother, and unfortunately the second pseudo stepfather as well, but he's believed to be deceased now. And they set up and they deliberately re-injured that spine. And I would really love to still not have to give up on my dancing and be able to because it became part of who I am, which I think is a big reason they went after it. And I'd love to be able to work with a chiropractor. I researched, found who would be good and everything. For here, I think I made a big mistake because they answered, I was checking to see if they would take my insurance that I had at the time. I don't have that insurance now anyway, so it's neither here nor there. But they, they were asking me my information, and they said they'd get back to me, and I realized now I'm pretty sure, it relates to the people that believe but not, that the person believed but not known to be my mother when she said, are her communications locked down, the people that work with her? Because like all my calls have been hijacked in there, and they seem very intent. They might not necessarily have my bank card number, and like they want to get it. So it's just sickening. And I keep getting disproportionately people with an accent from the Philippines, and they have been disproportionately involved in these love scams, triads connected love scams, and communications hijacking stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to update, and I am taking steps. It's not easy because it affects my health, appearance, and functioning. My brain, I can feel it hurting my nose right up into my brain. And I've never voluntarily decided, that's a thing to do. And I've worked hard for years. So after I had to give up on the dancing, I started working on the singing. I was getting one of the top 3 spots consistently in 3 genres: ambient, gothic, and electronica music on MySpace. So these people, some people came, they were sent, obviously a sign, blasted my left ear. Oh, I've still got my ear plugged in. I usually try to remember to take it out for the videos, but anyway, at this point I'll leave it in because I got a good fit in there, and otherwise I have to put it in as soon as I stop the video. But yeah, blasted my left ear with a yet to be identified sound weapon. And, we're also using computer hacking to be messing with my files as I was, going through the process of, and I'm not an expert, but I was, learning how to be doing it. And I was getting good at it. And so, and I was good enough because I was realistic about what I'm good at and what I'm not, so I was balancing things out so that the overall result was pleasant for people to hear. And that's why, all things combined, they were voting me into the top 3 consistently, and that was dynamic. Like, there was no advertising involved or what have you, like paid advertising or what have you. So, so that was very promising, but this has all been destroyed for the time being as well, just illegitimately. Well, I should say unfairly. I mean, legitimately, if you can't even sing, right now I can't sing and I can't work with files. So to that extent, it's legitimate that I'm not, up in the rankings right now, what have you. But how I've been knocked out of being able to do anything in that regard is totally illegitimate. And then I was left with at least trying to raise awareness enough to get the help that's necessary. So they're doing everything to try to undermine that as well. And you can see there's a twitching that's indicative of the neurological effects of these poisons and drugs. And it's in both categories, poisons and drugs. So not going to say more about that for the time being because of my condition and because they have so many people pocketed, I've had to not be able to get the progress as quickly as I would like, but I am still making progress to be able to get these things better addressed and stopped. So I'm going to close this out. I wanted to update, and I don't want people to see me like this in general publicly, but I'm going to put it for my friends to be able to see, or see if I can get the file small enough to send in Messenger or something. Okay. Thank you. God bless you.
I was semi-recovered for a December 5th, 2020 live video exactly 8 weeks before starting this January 30th, 2021 update.
In one of the organized predators meetings, their audio engineering consultant referenced people from multiple countries, including the Director of National Defense. To this day, I am not sure if he was referring to the Director of National Defense of Canada or the Director of National Defense and Homeland Security of the United States of America.
It's grace that brought us here thus far, and grace